welcome back to the Gardening with Joy and Holly radio show. Happy to have you around. Want more information about those sponsors? You can find all that out at the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com underneath the Money tab at the top of the page for coupons and the Season 9 tab for all the sponsors you've heard that support the program. Well, Holly, let's go to the hotline and bring in our guest for this week.
Dr. Derrick Stowell has over 25 years of experience leading recreational and therapeutic programs. He was leading the horticultural therapy program at the University of Tennessee, but recently transitioned into the role of teaching recreational therapy. Welcome to the program, Derrick.
Hello, thank you.
Well, let's start with this. We appreciate you taking time on the program here, not only to enlighten Holly and myself, but all of our guests. And I'll start with this. What is a horticultural therapist? What is that? And we know it's not talking to plants, so how does that tie into humans?
Sure, yeah. So a horticultural therapist is somebody that has been trained in the use of horticulture as a therapeutic modality. And they are registered through the organization called the American Horticultural Therapy Association. So those individuals get a college education training, at least a bachelor's degree, plus a supervised internship to meet the requirements of a horticultural therapist so they can practice.
So it's like, is it similar to a traditional therapist, but just in the role of the horticultural genre?
Sure, yeah. So it is very, and horticultural therapists, we focus on using horticulture, and gardening as, the modality that we're working with. So it's the interaction between growing plants, caring for plants, and humans. And what makes this different than just simply us gardening is working with a therapist that has that does assessment. So we assess our clients or our patients to determine what are their needs, what are their health needs, and then we develop goals around those assessments to then implement a program that helps improve their health and wellness outcomes.
That's a very, very interesting way of therapy. So what inspired you to get into horticultural therapy?
That's a good question. I kind of came through a really roundabout way. For me, a lot of my experiences when I was younger and in high school was outside in nature, hiking, doing outdoors kind of related activities. So I went to college, focused on outdoor recreation and wanting to help lead people in outdoor experiences. And then came around after completing my bachelor's degree and doing some volunteer work with AmeriCorps after I graduated. I joined and took part in a recreational therapy program at the University of Tennessee. I got my master's degree in that. And I spent about 5 years running a national youth camp for children with disabilities. And then found the University of Tennessee Gardens. And while I started working there, I was focused mostly on education and garden education. But somebody mentioned the concept of horticultural therapy, and what I started learning about that and realized that was very closely related to my master's degree in recreational therapy, which again is using recreation as the therapeutic modality. So I went back to school, took some more courses, and I started developing programs at the University of Tennessee Gardens to meet the needs of the populations that were coming to me. So we had folks from assisted living facilities and memory care facilities reaching out to us and wanting to come to our gardens or wanting us to come to them and bring programs to help enrich the lives of those residents. And so from there, I started developing those programs, and then I got involved in horticultural therapy that way. So it was kind of an indirect route, but it really, to me, has always been the connection to nature. And in horticultural therapy is that connection to nature through growing and caring for plants.
Wow. So what is a remarkable moment you've had when working with others in horticultural therapy that you were just like, this is awesome?
Yeah, I think, in some ways it's almost every time I work with somebody. There's something really awesome about working with folks and getting to get your hands in the soil and digging up plants and growing plants and just caring for those plants, and then seeing the connections those people make. But I think this summer we at the UT Gardens we run a program for teens who have disabilities that's focused on vocational skills. So we're trying to teach them about job skills, social skills, and horticulture. And throughout that program, the participants we have that come there, participants have a variety of different diagnoses, from intellectual disability to autism to other medical complications. And this past summer, it was really interesting. We were there talking. I was talking with some of their participants, and there's one individual who was he has autism, and so when we were talking, I was talking to somebody else, but he was standing right next to us, and I was talking about a vacation that I took, it's sort of during our break time, so we were all socializing, and that individual kind of looks at us and he says, "I'm glad you had a good time at that vacation," and so he kind of, was so for someone who has autism, sometimes the ability to kind of take part in kind of a social conversation and then interact back and forth can be a challenge. But part of the experience of working outside and working with plants that I find is this breaks down barriers for folks, and it allows them to relax and allows them to have some therapeutic experiences. And so for him, it was like, hey, he was listening to us, he was interacting, he was giving feedback, and he was back and forth in a conversation. So that really was just really an awesome experience to kind of see and be part of that through our program.
Now, did you grow up in a garden family, or was this all kind of new to you as you grew older and decided this is where you wanted to go? Yeah,
that's a good question. So I'm from East Tennessee, so we have amazing outdoors, amazing mountains and hiking trails, and I did a lot of that, particularly in high school. But my dad did garden, and so there's, I can remember, between the time of when he moved to the house that I grew up in, before we had me and my sister, we had his whole backyard was at one point like a vegetable garden, like he was growing that much produce. And then over the years, it kind of came and went depending on, what we had going on. But he always had some gardens. And then I think it was right around middle school years, he became friends with a guy who worked at a local garden center. And so that kind of, if you're a gardener, you kind of get a friend that works at a place like that, kind of gets you in trouble, right? Because you got a lot of access to a lot of information and plants and everything. So that individual, he had built a pond in his backyard. And so my dad had to build a pond. So we dug it. I remember digging that pond with him, a koi pond in our backyard, landscaping it, and just so over the years, just being really highly involved in different landscaping and garden elements that my dad had at the house. And we built on, made our own greenhouse. So yeah, so I've been doing that since I was little, because of my dad and his interest. And so, it was kind of interesting too, thinking back on that, of how, I went away, kind of did a lot of outdoor kind of nature hiking, and then got back into gardening when I was a little bit older. And so, yeah, that was a really important part of my development of becoming a horticultural therapist.
So what is the history of horticultural therapy? Who started it, the origin, or who founded it, or who invented it, or whatever?
So, there's some stories. A lot of information starts back in the early years of our country when, if you've studied history of healthcare, people that had mental health issues and other disabilities were kind of taken to, they called them hospitals, but they were kind of centers where they were removed from society and kind of kept separate.
Not a good thing.
There were not the best history, right. But one of the things that we talk a lot about in our profession is this guy named Benjamin Rush in Philadelphia was a psychiatrist. I think he's considered the father of modern psychiatry. And he had there was a hospital he was part of, a facility where people lived at. And he noted, just through his observation, that people that experienced the outdoor working in a farm setting had improved. Like it was written down as like hit their mania. So it helped them calm down. It helped them center themselves. And so those were some early documentation of that. And then throughout history at times, different cultures have used gardens as part of things like hospice programs during the Middle Ages, and in the monasteries. But in the United States particularly, the profession really began organizing formally in 1973 when the American Horticultural Therapy Association formed. So before that, there were some developments, like during World War I and World War II, when soldiers were coming back with injuries, different people started using plants as activities in the hospitals with the veterans were coming back in and being rehabilitated. So there was some noted there. But our profession really started in 73 when a bunch of the professionals and horticulturists and horticultural therapists came together and said, we need a professional association because there's enough people interested in this that we have to start organizing. We have to start saying, what is this profession? How do we define it? What are standards? What is research surrounding this? So then we can kind of continue to build that profession and continue to ensure that the work we do is protecting the patients and clients, and also advancing through sound scientific evidence-based practice.
Yeah, that evidence-based practice you mentioned earlier, for those who are not familiar with what they did to individuals who, quote unquote, didn't fit into society, there were some horrific things in which they did behind those closed doors. Mm-hmm. Whenever you go and do these programs for memory loss individuals or homes, do you see a light in their face when they get their hands in the dirt or they're talking about it that you normally don't see because their memory is going away in into life situation?
Yeah, I think it depends on, we work a lot with older adults, some with memory loss and some without. But, we see that, when I take a cart in full of plants, like their eyes light up. One of the facilities I used to go to a lot was a memory care facility. And this one particular participant that would come in every time, I would go there twice a month. She was there all the time. She was the first one in the room. She was outside in the garden that they had. She was highly involved and engaged in what we did because she had a lot of meaning in that. One of the activity director there told me one time, and I didn't really have any idea she was like, that resident, this is the only activity she came to. They said her husband had passed away, and so she was just not social, not interactive with anybody else or any other activity, but she was at the garden program. And those are the kinds of things that we see a lot with the particularly in assisted living facilities. I hear it a lot from the activity staff or activity directors that work in those facilities is we're providing a meaningful activity for them that helps connect them to their past. And gives them a sense of purpose that a lot of times they lose when you go into a facility because, people are used to having their own garden and going out and growing produce. And so we're giving them the ability to do that again and reconnect with those memories. And it's very, very powerful for those residents.
And it makes you feel good that you are giving them you're bringing happiness to them once again that they may have lost.
Yeah.
Well, Derrick, we greatly appreciate the time. How can people find out this method for their loved ones or themselves in their particular area, the horticultural therapist?
Sure. Unfortunately, you find it there's a lot of areas where it's focused at around the country. If you check out, the best place to go is ahta.org. It's the American Horticultural Therapy Association website. They have a section on their website that's HTR search, so you can actually search your zip code looking for a horticultural therapist. Also, if someone doesn't come up there, you can just email them. It's info at ahta.org and say, hey, I'm looking for somebody. A lot of our therapists, some therapists are private practice, and so they have their own businesses, and they, so you can probably do some searches online for horticultural therapy in your area to see if you can find somebody. And then AHTA can kind of help you find somebody also and connect up with that way.
Well, Derrick, we thank you very much for enlightening us about horticultural therapy. Many people probably didn't even know that was a thing, and now they can search and maybe be part of that or get the help they need in that particular realm. We thank you for your help and your knowledge.
Great. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.